So we're going to move on to our next system. So we're going through different body systems, talking about each of them and how they help us to maintain homeostasis, keep balance, keep the proper conditions so that we can survive. And so we'll talk about the next system we're going to talk about is the excretory system, excretion, removal of waste. And so excretion just means getting rid of waste products. The metabolic activities in our cells that are happening all the time, they produce waste products. And waste products, if they were to build up, can be dangerous to our body. They can become toxic. They can basically poison us. And so our body has systems to get rid of those wastes. One of those organs is the lungs. We know that our lungs, not only do they take in oxygen, but they also are an excretory organ. They get rid of waste. And the waste that our lungs get rid of is carbon dioxide. Remember, as blood travels to the capillaries in our lungs surrounding the alveoli, carbon dioxide diffuses out and we exhale that carbon dioxide. So breathing is important both for taking in oxygen, but also for getting rid of this carbon dioxide that our cells produce during respiration. Sweat glands are another example of an organ that has multiple functions. Yes, sweat helps us to cool down when we're hot, but sweat contains waste products in it. It contains urea and other salts. And if you've been outside exercising a lot or working, as sweat evaporates from your skin, what's left over is like white salts. Or if you play baseball or something, you wear a hat all the time, you'll see that over time, as sweat soaks into it and then evaporates, the salt is left over because the salt doesn't evaporate. Our liver is a really important organ that helps to remove a whole bunch of different waste products from our blood, especially waste products that have nitrogen in them. Our liver helps break down old red blood cells, helps detoxify our blood. Our liver is what breaks down alcohol. And that's also why when a person drinks on a daily basis, it eventually ends up damaging the person's liver. It leads to cirrhosis of the liver, where the liver doesn't work properly anymore. And it's unable to do its excretory functions, and that can be dangerous. That's the liver. And then our kidneys. Our kidneys are a hugely important excretory organ. This is a human kidney. Looks just like a kidney bean. Which came first, the kidney or the kidney bean? I guess the kidney bean is probably named after the kidneys, I would guess. So our kidneys receive a constant flow of blood from our body, and they remove from our blood all sorts of different waste products, salts and urea, glucose. Our kidneys are located sort of not in our back, but on the back side of our body. In your lower back, sort of on each side of your spine is a kidney. We have two kidneys, right and a left kidney. Could see them here. And so you could see they have arteries that take the blood from our body to the kidneys. Kidneys do their thing and then return that blood back into circulation through these blue veins that are labeled here. And your kidneys are taking waste products out from your blood, and they're putting them and mixing them with water to form urine. Urine is the waste products that our kidneys took from our blood mixed with water. The kidneys each have connected to them a tube, thin tube. It's called the ureter. There's one from each kidney that leads down into the bladder. And so the kidneys are producing sort of a constant drip of urine. Okay, they're taking, as blood is constantly flowing through them, they're taking out the waste products, mixing them with water, and then there's a drip of urine from these ureters into the bladder. And the bladder stores up that urine until it's fullish. And then there are nerves attached to the bladder that tell us, gives us a feeling we have to use the bathroom. And then it's below here, the opening from the bladder, or the tube that brings the urine from the bladder out of the body, is called the urethra. So the two tubes from the kidney to the bladder are the ureters. The one single tube that leads to the outside world is the urethra. So if we were to think about urine, urine's mostly water, but it has a whole bunch of other things in it: ammonia, sulfate. All right. Glad you felt that amazing. Anyway.
Just like threw it.
I didn't mean that to throw it. It just happened. Oh, okay. And it's back. So urine is all sorts of different things. The biggest waste product found in urine is urea. That's what gives it its name. That's nitrogen-based waste. Waste from when we eat proteins and so forth. Sometimes, some people try to eat a very high protein diet. And sometimes that kind of diet can be stressful on the kidneys because proteins are where this nitrogen is found. And so there's going to be higher levels of urea in the body, and the kidneys have to work harder to remove that waste. And so sometimes if a person has kidney failure or problems with their kidney, the doctor may ask them to eat a low protein diet to make it less difficult on their kidneys. But there's all these other things, minerals and salts and so forth. We can see it in a graph here. The amount of water is adjusted by our kidneys as a method of homeostasis. If we have not drank enough water, if we're dehydrated, our body monitors that and it responds by telling your kidneys, hey, there's not a lot of water here in the blood. You need to not put much water into the urine. And so if you use the bathroom when you're dehydrated, your urine is dark because your kidneys are holding on to that water. If you drink tons of water, then the opposite process happens. The kidneys are monitoring, say, okay, we got plenty of water. We can put lots of that water into the urine so that we get rid of it and maintain a proper water balance. And then urine is very light in color because it's diluted with this water. So this is, again, homeostasis, balancing the water levels in our body, and our kidneys do this. There's lots of different things that affect diseases that can affect the kidneys. So if the kidneys are not functioning, that can be dangerous. That can actually be life-threatening. We need a working kidney to survive. We can get by with just one. So if a person has kidney failure, maybe they were in an accident, and so one of their kidneys was damaged, is not working, they can be fine. You can survive perfectly healthily with a single kidney. It can do all of the work of filtering your blood. But if a person has two kidneys that are not functioning, that's when it can be a dangerous situation because these toxins in our blood that our kidneys are getting rid of can build up to dangerous levels. When a person has kidney failure, they can get a kidney transplant. That's something that can be done. If they find a matching kidney that has the proper antigens. A person can donate a kidney. A living person, a family member, might donate a kidney to somebody that's in need. And the person that donated it, they can be fine because they're living with one kidney and one kidney can do the job. And then the person that received the kidney can be fine because one kidney can do all the work. And so a kidney transplant is a pretty common type of transplant that people have. People can donate organs like kidneys after they die. So like on your driver's license someday when you get one, you have the option of saying you would be an organ donor, which means if you were in an accident or something happened and you died, they have permission to take your organs and transplant them to people that are in need of those. And you can choose to do that or not do that. I guess we'll talk a little bit more about it when we talk about the immune system. But when a person receives a transplant of another organ from another person, there's some steps that need to be taken to make sure their body doesn't reject the organ. Like if I were to have a kidney transplant, I would have to be given medications that are going to lower my immune system. Because if you just put someone else's organ into a human body, what happens is the immune system says, hey, this is not part of me. And your immune system will actually destroy the new organ and fight against it and damage it so that it doesn't work. It's called organ rejection. So typically when a person gets an organ transplant, they take medications, which sort of knocks down their immune system so that they don't reject it. And it's also why they try to find a close match. It's why a relative's kidney might be more acceptable. And so oftentimes they'll look to immediate family members for organ donation first, because it's less likely your body will reject it because it's more similar to you. So lots of factors affect kidney functioning. Low blood pressure is not good for the kidneys. High blood pressure is not good for the kidneys because your kidneys rely on the blood pressure to function, to sort of force some of the fluid from your blood out and into the nephrons. Damage to kidneys can happen through high blood pressure, certain drugs, certain heavy metals like lead and mercury. People can get kidney infections. Bacteria can make their way to the kidneys and affect them. There's all sorts of different things that could affect the use of kidneys. Kidney stones. This is a kidney stone. So sometimes secretions of minerals, calcium and other minerals, can form inside the body in different places. Like you may have heard a person have gallstones. That's when in the gallbladder, these little calcifications form, these little stones. They almost look like, this is what they look like. And when they form, they eventually might pass through the body. And so like gallstones are extremely painful. If you ever have known someone that had gallstones, it's like excruciatingly painful. I've heard people say that it's more painful than childbirth. And so the same sort of things can happen in the kidneys. In the kidneys, kidney stones can form. These are minerals. And when they form, they eventually will move through the body. And they have to go through very small tubes. The ureter is a small tube. And so when this kidney stone is moving through the ureter, it's really painful. And it can get into the bladder. And then when it goes from the bladder, it has to come out of the body through the urethra. And so as this secretion of this stone, depending on how big it is, it's extremely painful. Like, did you ever swallow like a Dorito that was too big and chewed up enough? It like scrapes your whole throat as you swallow it. It's like that, but in other parts of the body. And so sometimes when a person has kidney stones like this, doctors can try to break them up with like sound waves. Oftentimes it doesn't work. So they might just encourage a person to drink lots of water, give them medicines that make them go to the bathroom a lot to try to flush those stones out through their body. But from what I've heard, it's painful. So if a person has kidney failure, Obviously, like I said, they need a kidney transplant. But while they're waiting, there's more people that need transplanted organs than there are organs available. So if a person needed a kidney transplant, they can't just go get one tomorrow, right? You go to a list, and then when one becomes available, it's given to the next person on the list based on all sorts of factors. And so while a person is waiting to have a kidney donated, they may have to have what's called dialysis. Dialysis is basically a machine is acting as your kidneys. It's shown here on the left. This is a dialysis machine. And when a person needs dialysis, they go to the doctor's office, several times a week. They basically, an IV, they're hooked up to an IV, and blood from their body comes out, goes into this machine, which tries to do the job of the kidneys. Take out salts, take out urea and other waste products. And then it puts the blood back into the person. So it's basically like an artificial kidney, and it works based on diffusion. Okay, and a person would have to go for that every week, several times probably, until they can get a transplanted kidney that's going to allow them to live without dialysis. Here's another example. This just shows sort of how it works. Dialysis works basically, like I said, the blood comes out, goes through a pump, goes through some chemicals, goes next to a saline solution so that materials from the blood can diffuse into this saline solution, and then they can be removed, and then goes back into the body. Here is shown kidney transplant. When a person does get a kidney transplanted, the old unworking kidneys are usually just left in there, and a new kidney is sort of patched, and you can see it here. It's patched in to the circulation that feeds those kidneys. People can get infections of the urinary tract. They're fairly common, and that's when bacteria from outside of the body can get into the urethra, into the bladder, or into the ureters, or even the kidneys. Women are more vulnerable to bladder infections and urinary tract infections because it's a shorter distance from the opening of the urethra into the bladder. Liver failure is something that also can affect people. Cirrhosis of the liver due to excessive drinking of alcohol, toxins, heavy metals can all damage the liver, and that can lead to a whole host of symptoms. And if it is an extreme case, then it can eventually lead to death. And a liver can be transplanted as well. A person can get a liver transplant from a person or from a cadaver or something like that. Any questions about excretory system?